things that are going to help us drive our business, become better salespeople, become better business people. And so I want to open today talking about being a worthy follower. All of us need to make sure we are pursuing mentorship, pursuing someone who can help us drive our business to the next level. And this comes in all shapes and sizes and forms. I know right now that a lot of us have people that we follow who we don't actually know. You know, there's a lot of ability to almost have mentorship from stuff like this, from podcasts, from social media influencers. And so we want to make sure we are following the right people who can help us strategically take our business where we want it to go. Now, this is going to be speaking from the perspective of if there's someone in your life that you are engaging as a mentor, you've asked them to help mentor you. How do we engage that person? How do we learn from that person? How do we treat that person? So, with no further ado, when you find someone who can personally mentor you, use these guidelines to help develop a positive mentor relationship with that person. Ask the right questions. Give thought to the questions you will ask before the time with your mentor. Make the questions strategic for your growth, right? You don't want to engage a mentor in a short conversation and speak about nothingness. This is not a small talk moment. Don't let ego get in the way of learning. It's an easy thing for a lot of us to do, is not want to feel like less than. In reality, you've got to know who you're trying to become. You could ask questions that that person would ask to help you get to that place. Respect the mentor, but don't idolize that person. Making the mentor an idol removes our critical faculty for adapting a mentor's knowledge and experience to ourselves. It'd be very easy to take a mentor's advice and say, well, that won't work for me. I'm not them. I don't have the skills that they have. So we don't idolize them. We view them as real people who know more than we do, who have experiences that we don't have. We want to put into effect immediately what you're learning. Be disciplined in relating to the mentor. Arrange for ample time. Select the subject matter in advance. And do your homework to make sessions profitable. Don't threaten to give up. Let your mentor know that you have a decision for progress, so that you will know that they will know that you are not wasting their time. I think it's critical to approach those conversations. Now, there's people in your life maybe that are mentors of yours and they don't know it yet. And that's okay. Every mentor doesn't have to be like, it's not like it's not like a dating relationship where you have to have that. But there are people in different aspects of your life that you talk to in a way that you're trying to gain information from them. So this is saying is be intentional with that time. Be intentional with your questions. Be strategic with the time you have together. If you're going to go sit and have coffee with somebody, you might even say, hey, before we meet, I want to ask specifically about your process around, managing finances of a small business. Cool. They would love to be prepared to talk about that. If you say that to a person that you have a ton of respect for, that has done that at a high level, they're going to want to lean into that in that conversation. You're not going to spend 90% of the conversation time speaking about something else and then just kind of touch on at the end. They're going to want to dive in. What are the issues you're seeing? What are the challenges you have? What is your rhythm? Right? So especially when you're talking about business people, they love having business focused conversations. So they are willing, in most cases, going to be willing to skip the nuance of small talk to get down to stuff that's going to be impactful for you. You just got to be intentional with it. So something I think we can all take into our week as we are pursuing building relationships, I would encourage you to take this into your prospecting as well. There are people that you are prospecting that are maybe very important people in your life, in your business. And a lot of us, I hear it often that people struggle with, I don't really know what to talk about with some of these folks. I talk to them a lot. How do I engage them further? Man, if there's someone who runs a really thriving business, asking them to help you build your business to that level is something they're going to be very interested in helping with. But you've got to be intentional with the conversation. You've got to be very intentional with the time. Hey, How about next Friday? We meet, we grab coffee. I would love to pick your brain on X, Y, Z. What are the things you're struggling with that they have mastered or are farther down the road than you? This is going to build a relationship. They're going to see you differently through that lens than just someone who is maybe prospecting them for business. Be someone who asks good questions. And so brings me to something I thought was an excellent video, and I don't want to spoil it. I just want to share it, and then we'll talk about it here. So, with no further ado, let me kick it to Alex Hormozi, who is a rock star with making some things just somewhat simple.
Questions. Because so the perfect salesman says nothing and only asks questions because there's nothing to disagree with. Mm-hmm. And fundamentally, they're going to believe way more of what they say than what you say. So you want them to say it, not you.
The perfect salesperson is someone who asks questions and doesn't give you anything to disagree with. We've got to be better question askers. In this point of mentorship, we've got to be the one asking, probing, asking for more questions. In our sales business, man, I thought that was just empowering to say, give them nothing to disagree with by asking questions about them. If you're asking questions about someone else, they're going to give you answers to the questions you're asking, and there's nothing for them to disagree with. Like, that was a takeaway that for me, it was like, that's why we do that. I've always talked about asking better questions. That is why. There's nothing to disagree with. You're only learning in that situation. You're learning from the person. You're understanding their needs, their objectives, their goals, their challenges. You're understanding things about them, and they're going to leave that conversation saying, he gets me. She gets me. I don't know why I feel drawn to work with this person, but I think they get me. Because you're going to be the one that has the answers to the questions for which they have. You're going to be able to apply that later. He goes on.
And so you clarify whether they're there. C.
It reminds me of spies. I've interviewed a couple of CIA spies now, and every single one of them, I was expecting some like incredible technique or whatever. They all say, no, we just spend 6 to 8 weeks in the back of the cab listening to the Iranian taxi driver to figure out that his son has a health issue that we can then leverage later to get him to turn against his country. But the first 8 weeks, we're just listening to him offload. And they're like, it's crazy how people will just offload if you let them. Yeah. Everyone wants to talk.
Oh, 100%. So one is, clarify whether they're there. L is label them with a problem that you can solve. So it's like, okay, so it sounds like you were here, you responded to my ad, you DM me thing, or you whatever because of this reason. Is that right? Right. So you get confirmation on the problem, which is L. Then you O, which is overview past experiences or past pain. So it's like, what have you done so far to try and solve this? And this is important because motivation is the equal opposite of deprivation. So the more deprived someone is of something, the more motivated they are to solve it. And so like if you haven't eaten in an hour, you're probably not that motivated. If you haven't eaten in 2 days, you're very motivated. If you haven't slept in, a day, or you're normal motivated, I guess that was a bad one. But if you haven't slept in 3 days, you'll be incredibly motivated to sleep. And so we want to find what they're deprived of and then try to increase that deprivation in the conversation, basically make them more aware of the deprivation, the things that they don't have, right? Then once we have, enough deprivation that's very clear, that's like, okay, this is why you're here. You agreed with, this is the problem that you want to solve. You've tried all these things and it hasn't worked for you. I can imagine how frustrating that would be. S, which is then you sell, right? You sell a vacation, which typically is just 3 points. I usually keep it to 3 because most people can't remember more than that anyways. And the 3 points are usually, you can always find 3. And if you need to, you can chunk up if you've got 5. And if you've got, 2 chunk down, as in like break into smaller pieces. But like when I was in the fitness world, it was fitness, nutrition, accountability. When I was selling, mortgage leads, it's like you want the leads to be unique, you want them to be timely, and you want them to be exclusive, right? And so like, or qualified. And so it's like, there's always 3 things that you can usually triangulate. But when you say the 3 points, you don't then feature, jarble about the points. You then just usually put like a 1-sentence analogy of what that thing is. So it's kind of like this. And so these are like little 30-second sound bites to make the 3 points. That should never last longer than 90 seconds because most people waste all this time on the selling part. And that doesn't really matter because the more we can talk about them, the more they're going to want to buy. Mm-hmm. And then E, like at the end of that, you say, cool, ready to get started, ready to rock and roll, ready to start on Monday, whatever it is. And then E and R are around what happens if they say no, right? You explain it with their concerns, E. And the R is you reinforce the decision. And so R was actually something I added much later when I was teaching, many salespeople, because after they would like explain away and then close, they would just like, see you later. I got the credit card. Like, you're dead to me. But the R is like, no, like reinforce the decision. Like, I think it's a great decision. I'm going to introduce you to Polly. Polly's going to get you onboarded. And then Polly also continues the R and being like, Jack definitely helped you out. Let's get you all squared away.
I'm going to leave it right there. What an empowering breakdown of a sales meeting. But it all starts with the question. Did you hear at the beginning when he talked about clarifying why are we even here? You have a listing appointment. Help me understand what I'm doing here. What are you looking to do? Help me understand what your goals are. Help me understand what your objectives are. We can get away from making statements and turn them into questions. As we turn them into questions, we're going to gain information from that because it forces them to talk. Because if you remember, the first thing he said in the beginning was you're giving them nothing to disagree with. Why'd you decide to reach out, talk about selling your house? What's the objective? Where are you going? Paint me the picture of, where you see yourself, a year from now. What's going to change in your situation? Because we're clarifying the reason for which they're moving. If you understand the motivation, you understand the inverse of that, which is deprivation. I thought that was the other piece of that, which is they're inversely correlated. The motivation for which somebody is selling has been deprived for how long they have wanted to sell and not been able to, how long they have wanted a bigger house and not been able to, whatever it is. We've got to understand the pain behind why they're making this decision now. I would challenge you to think deeply about this and how you can apply this line of questioning and thought to your sales process with buyers. Like, as soon as we start trying to sell ourselves, it's over. How am I going to help you? How am I going to be the best agent to help you buy your next house? Let's talk about how I negotiate. Sorry. No one cares. They don't care. What they care about is what their need is and your ability to help them solve it. But you can only help them solve it if you understand the need. The final piece of that, and there was a lot there in the middle, the final piece of that was once they make a decision, reinforcing the decision that they made. We use this in our listing presentation. We call it and it's after the listing presentation, after they've decided to make a move. Even if they've not fully decided to sell, like if we leave an appointment and they say, you hate when this happens, but it does happen. We're not making a decision today. We just wanted to start to get the questions answered that we have, start interviewing and talking about the process. Leaving that appointment, or if they've made a decision, they've signed, leaving that appointment shortly after, giving them a call, a text, something to reinforce. Hey, I really enjoyed our time together. I think the questions you were asking were great questions. I think I am the person to help you solve that. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to work with you. Because what happens as soon as someone makes a decision, they start questioning their decision. And so as we can come behind and reinforce the decision for which they're making, it makes them feel that much better about it. So think about this in regards to your sales presentation. Think about this in regards to every interaction you have. How do I ask better questions? How do I turn my statements into questions? How do I stop focusing on me and focus on them? If you're focused on the mentor, you're going to get questions answered that help you fix your playbook moving forward. If you focus your questions on the prospect, you're going to help get answers that help you build relationships and bridges with people to help them carry out the goals of which they have to buy, sell, move, refinance, whatever it is. Ask better questions, get better answers. Have a great Friday. See you next week.